It was the breakout we've been looking for on offense as the Atlanta Braves win 10-6 on Monday night. And more specifically, Matt Olson, who seems to be heating up at the plate. Another big home run in this one, 4 hard hit balls. Whit Merrifield with a 5-hit game. Max Fried comes out after a long rain delay to help save the bullpen. A lot of good things happening in Monday night's game. We're also going to take a look at some historic pitching, starting pitching for the Atlanta Braves. And could this group be part of that? We'll discuss all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. Subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button so others can find us at Locked On Braves, and leave me a comment in the comment section down below, especially if you're an everydayer. Let me know, or if you make us your first listen of the day. And I appreciate you for all the support that you give me there. If you're listening on the audio version, you can help out by leaving a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Monday's big 10-6 win over the Minnesota Twins, the breakout offensively after just a dreadful performance on Sunday. Wouldn't you know it? They go to Minnesota against one of the hottest pitchers in baseball, and the offense goes bananas. It's the 2024 season. Who can figure it out? Max Fried's a great performance coming back after a rain delay. We're also going to look at the pitching staffs, particularly starting pitching, and just how historically great it's been for the Atlanta Braves. Could we be getting in another stretch of that with some new faces? Again, we'll discuss all that on today's podcast. However, now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Well, if you stayed up late to watch this episode with me, thank you so much. I see Injured Thrills, Jericho, Zach Mania, Taylor Parker, Doug in here, Scoot, Tish, Cherith, Reed, so many of you joining here with me late tonight. Jeffrey Humphreys, Adam Brenner, thank you all. Patrick Rosser, thanks for being here. Patrick McCarthy as well. Let's get into it, because this is a big win for the Atlanta Braves. A 10-6 win to start out this road trip, a very important road trip. We talked about it on Monday's podcast. In terms of the division, this is the biggest week of the year. You got 3 on the road against a good Twins team before going to Philadelphia for 4 games. And I said yesterday, you have to go into that series with the Phillies at least 5 games back, and you have to come out of that less than 5 games back. Phillies, unfortunately, won a game against the Astros in extra innings on Monday night, so that really stinks because you had a chance to get that back down to 5. But either way, for the Braves, it's just about winning games, winning series the rest of the way. The Mets were idle, so you do pick up a half game there, and you stretch that lead out to 3, which feels a lot better than 2.5. So certainly want to see that as well, try to create some separation as the Mets are going through a little bit of a hard schedule at the moment, although they continue to play well. But let's talk about this win on Monday night, because the Braves offense broke out in a big way. 4 runs in the first inning, 5 runs in the second inning, 1 run later in the 6th inning. I'm not trying to be picky. It was a 10-run effort. You'd have liked to seen a little bit more kind of throughout that. The game got a little bit too close, 10-6. You had to get Raisel Iglesias up in the 9th inning. That's the negative. Let's not talk any more negative. Let's talk about the positive here. And this was the offense. And Whit Merrifield batting leadoff, going 5 for 5 at the plate. We talked about this yesterday. The Braves' best hitters over the last really 2 weeks now have been Ramon Laureano and Whit Merrifield. Ramon Laureano goes over 5 in this one, although he had 2 hard hit balls. But Whit Merrifield, he's been excellent, especially starting with that Phillies series. He has been on quite a roll. And for me, even when Michael Harris is healthy, which he came into this game, we can talk about that a little bit more. Even when Michael Harris and Jorge Soler are both healthy, I think for the foreseeable future, Whit Merrifield needs to be your leadoff guy. I would love to see them put Michael Harris back in the 5-6 spot in the lineup. Just let him get going. Let him relax, get comfortable in the middle of that lineup. It's been a frustrating year for him. The injuries, the cold streaks that he's had. just let him kind of ease into the middle of that order. I know because of injuries, you've had to thrust him up towards the top just out of necessity. But if everybody's healthy right now, I really wish they'd put Michael Harris back in the middle of that order. And at least for the moment, while Whit Merrifield seems locked in at the moment, let him bat leadoff. I mean, it's a guy that has a 500 on base percentage over the last week. Again, I don't know if that's going to continue. I doubt that's going to continue. But while he's hot, just ride that. And that's really what you have to do right now with this lineup, with all the injuries that you have. You kind of just have to ride the hot hand. And he's done that some with Laureano, who's been hot lately. He's batted him at the top of the order. And I feel like that just has to be the way that you manage this lineup the rest of the way. If you're playing good, you look like you're having good at bats, move them on up. But for Whit Merrifield in particular, a guy who was an all-star last year and a guy that's a veteran, knows how to put the ball in play, has good speed, I would just ride with him at the top of the lineup. Even if Soler and Michael Harris are both healthy, I'm putting Whit Merrifield at the top of my lineup right now for just his ability to get on base and that speed that he brings. But a 5-hit night for him, scored a couple of runs, 2 hard hit balls. But maybe even more important than that is the night from Matt Olson. 3 hits on the night, 4 hard hit balls. Seemed like everything he hit was absolutely squared up, even the couple of outs that he made. Big home run in the first inning to give the Braves a huge lead early. Big 3-run home run. Important about that at bat. It's kind of similar to what happened on Sunday as well. They threw 2 cutters early in that at bat that Matt Olson, just couldn't get to as a tick off, fouled those off. And with 2 strikes, they tried that cutter again. Got it. This one was a little bit higher. And again, kind of like Sunday, I thought it was in a better spot, but Matt Olson ready for it that third time around that he got it and did not miss it. Absolutely crushed it. Same thing on Sunday where first 2 strikes against Matt Olson in that at bat were four-seam fastballs that he was just a tick off, fouling him back. They tried it again, threw it up a little bit, and he was able to get to it and drive it out to center field. So very interesting. Last 2 home runs for Matt Olson, those at bats, got to 2 strikes with a certain pitch. Pitcher tried to go back to it for a third time, and Matt Olson was ready for it. So hopefully that speaks to the fact that Matt Olson is starting to be able to adjust a little bit more, even just during at bats, not even at bat to bat, but within an at bat. That would be really huge. But he's looked really good lately. And obviously in this game, 5 runs batted in, 3 hits. I mentioned all the hard hits that he had. So that is encouraging to see. That is what you need. This Braves offense needs. You need obviously Marcell Ozuna to continue what he's doing. And he had 2 hits and 2 RBI on the night. But Matt Olson, for me, going forward without Austin Riley, obviously without everybody else that you have, you got to have a Matt Olson that heats up and starts hitting the ball out of the ballpark. So now it's really 3 straight games. He had a double off the top of the wall that I still don't know how it didn't get out, a home run on Sunday and a home run today. So 3 straight games now where Matt Olson has had some really impact hits, extra base hits. Got to have more of that from Matt Olson down the stretch if this offense is going to get going and this Braves team is going to have success. So those are 2 very encouraging things. Like I said, with Merrifield at the top of the order, I think he needs to stay there. And then Matt Olson with a big night and, again, looks to be getting back on track. So that is great to see. And really, it was those 3 guys that I mentioned. I mean, those are the only 3 that had multiple hits in this game, even with 10 runs and 13 hits. 5 of them came from Whit Merrifield, 3 from Matt Olson, and 2 from Marcell Ozuna. Jorge Soler, who was back in the lineup, batting second, he walked twice. And that's the other thing, too. You put Whit at the top of this order, a guy that can get on base, and you follow him up with Jorge Soler, a guy who has the power and that on-base ability. Suddenly you got 2 guys at the top of this lineup who can get on base. One of them, it gives you speed. And then if you get Ozuna, obviously he's been going all year, and then you get Olson going, and you get those guys on for those 2, you could really see this offense start to get going. And then you back that up with Travis d'Arnaud, Sean Murphy, Michael Harris. You put him down in the order, and all of a sudden this lineup's looking a little bit more lengthy. So that's why I kind of stick with that. Even when Michael Harris is back, I stick with Whit Merrifield, Jorge Soler, Ozuna, Olson, the catchers, Michael Harris, to kind of stretch the lineup out a little bit more. I want to get into the pitching side of things here next. Max Fried, obviously coming back after a long delay and pitching a great game for the Atlanta Braves, getting some of those innings in, which the Braves absolutely needed. We'll talk more about that here next. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to download America's #1 sportsbook. And while you're there, you're going to see daily parlays and lines out there for Major League Baseball, obviously college football coming up, the NFL season as well. Just around the corner, you'll see World Series favorites, end of season awards favorites there for Major League Baseball. You can see all that over at FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast, where Sully brings humor and analysis from every team around the league as he gets you ready for the postseason. Check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Getting back into Monday night's action, talked a lot about the offense. I wanted to briefly touch on the pitching because Max Fried in this one, the Braves give you a 4 spot in the top of the first. He comes in the bottom of the first, allows a run back. I did not love that, but limits it to just that 1 run, giving up a free 90 feet. We're just not checking the runner at second base led to that. I was trying to be positive the rest of the way, but that really kind of bugs me because I feel like Braves pitchers give up free 90 feet all the time. But it led to a run, and it kind of gave the Twins a little bit of hope that they maybe could get back in this game. Braves come back out, score 5 more runs, and the game's pretty much over at that point. But then you have an hour-and-a-half rain delay, and usually starting pitchers don't come back after that. But Max Fried does come back. Fortunately, the Twins hitters were pretty aggressive after the rain delay, and so it allowed Max Fried to keep his pitch count down. He gets through 5 innings, only gives up 1 earned run. He gave up 3 total, but 2 of those being unearned on an error from Orlando Arcia. And if he doesn't make that error, I still think he only goes 5 innings, but certainly things look a lot better in this one. 5 innings, just 4 hits, no walks. I mentioned 3 runs, but only 1 of them earned, and 7 strikeouts. So another great game for Max Fried. I thought the secondary stuff looked really good in this one. The curveball, he had 4 whiffs on six swings. The changeup, he had 2 whiffs on 5 swings, only threw that 10 times. But I thought those 2 pitches in particular were really good on this night, locating that fastball a little bit better. So it's just another step in the right direction for Max Fried after that little bit of hiccup after the All-Star break. And just big of him to come back out after that rain delay, get through the 5th inning, not only to qualify for the win, which I'm sure was not his main motivation. His main motivation was just to save that bullpen. You're starting a long road trip, like I said, one of the biggest weeks of the year. So I thought that was huge for Max Fried to be able to come out and do that. Did not love that the bullpen kind of let the Twins get their ways somewhat back into this game. But either way, Max Fried coming back out there and giving you 5 innings in total was really big. And then on defense, Michael Harris enters into this game. We'll talk about that more at the end. But he comes in and makes some big catches in this game. One in particular with Grant Holmes pitching and the bases loaded, makes an incredible snow cone catch running towards the center field wall. So he comes in, makes some great catches, some really good catches all over the infield tonight. Jorge Soler with a somewhat diving catch, which again, maybe why he left the game. We didn't hear anything afterwards, or not as yet of me recording here. Jared Kelenic with some as well. So the outfield defense was really good on the night. But I wanted to talk about it today. And of course, I had already had this planned out before the Braves offense went bananas. But I wanted to talk a lot about the Braves starting rotation and just how historically good the Braves starters have been. Because I feel like there's this notion, at least in this stretch of the Braves' success, that it's all offense and you're struggling to find starting pitching. And look, this era of Braves baseball, it's not the 2000s, early 2000s, late 1990s there. It's not that group, but the pitching's still been really good. And you look at this year's group in particular, They're ranked 9th overall in baseball with a 3.87 ERA, but we know that doesn't really tell the full story. That includes Darius Vines and his 4.66 ERA, Bryce Elder's 6.52 in 10 starts, Ray Kerr at 9.39, Alan Winans of 15.26, and Hurston Waldrop with a 16.71. Now, those guys all made a combined 6 starts, but they weren't very good. You look at the top 5 in this rotation: Ronaldo Lopez at 202, Sale at 262, Fried at 357, Schwellenbach at 394. His expected ERA is in the low threes. And then Charlie Morton at 424. I mean, that's a really good starting 5 for the Atlanta Braves. If you just take the ERA for those 5 guys, it's a 3.23 staff ERA. It's obviously fantastic. You can't do that, but that is a fantastic ERA for the Braves starting 5. So bear with me here. We're going to go through a little bit of history and look at some of the better staffs in all of baseball. If you're a history buff, you're going to enjoy hearing some of these names. There are some names in here I don't even remember, so you can definitely get one up on me if you remember some of these names. But last year, the Braves starters had a 4.36 ERA. That ranked 17th. You know the struggles of the Braves starting rotation last year, a lot of that having to do with injuries. The year before that, in 2022, they had a 3.72 staff ERA. That ranked 9th in baseball. That was Max and Spencer. Both had an ERA under 2.8. That was also the year that Kyle Wright was spectacular with 21 wins and a 3.19 ERA. So that rotation was really, really good in 2022. Unfortunately, Max sick and Spencer hurt going into that postseason. In 2021, wasn't bad either. You had Fried with a 3.04, Morton with a 3.34, and Ian Anderson with a 3.58. It's also crazy to think we just talked about Kyle Wright. He had a 9.95 ERA in 2021 before breaking out in 2022. Another thing I want you to keep in mind as we go through some of this history is how volatile starting pitching is and how one guy can completely fall off the map the next year, how guys are constantly coming in and out of the rotation. It is not the 1990s, the Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz thing. That is not the norm. You do not have 3 pitchers that can stick in a rotation for a 10-year stretch. Just doesn't happen, especially not in today's game. You go to, or that 2021 team, they were ranked 7th in baseball with a 3.84 ERA. Now, 2020 was crazy. Obviously, we don't put too much stock in 2020 numbers. The Braves had a 5.51 ERA for its starters in 2020. That was 28th in baseball. That is the worst staff ERA this Braves team has had since 1991, which is as far back as I went. They did have some good pitchers that year, though. Max Fried was 7-0 with a 2.25 ERA. Ian Anderson had a 1.95 ERA in just 6 starts, but pretty much everybody else in that rotation was awful. In 2019, they were 12th with a 4.20. Soroka led the way with a 2.68 ERA in 29 starts. Had Keuchel, Tehran, Fried, and Fulte. They were all between 3.7 and 4.5. Gausman made 16 starts that year, had a 6.19 ERA. He was so bad, and he was so dominant the year before that in 2018, where the Braves were 4th in ERA at 3.5. That was led by Fulte at 2.85. Anibal Sanchez had a 2.90 ERA that year. They were great. Gausman coming over in the trade had a 2.87 ERA down the stretch. He also had Newcomb and Tehran, who were solid that season as well. And remember Brandon McCarthy? He brought them down a little bit, had a 4.92 ERA in 15 starts that season. Now, the 15 through 17 stretch was really bad. All ERAs in the 4s, 16 and 17, it was high 4s. Now, going back to 2014, there's a good stretch here from really 2009 to 2014 where this pitching staff ranked in the top 10 every year. In 2014, it was Alex Wood at 2.59, Julio Tehran, Aaron Harang at 3.57, Irvin Santana at 3.95, and Mike Minor. In 2013, the staff ranked 6th at 3.51 ERA. That was led by Medlin, Tehran, Minor, Wood, and Hudson. They were 7th the year before that. Ben Sheets had a big season that year. Paul Mahone. In 2011, Jair Jurgens led the way with a 2.96 ERA. Tommy Hanson, Brandon Beachy, Derek Lowe had a 5.05 ERA. Derek Lowe was not great for the Atlanta Braves. That was a tough stretch for the rotation a little bit with Derek Lowe there. But the rest of them looked really, really good. In 2010, Tim Hudson led the way with 17-9 with a 2.83 ERA. Brandon Beachy again. Brandon Beachy had several really good years for the Braves. Hansen in there as well, Medlin. This was the group over this stretch here you had from 2009 to 2014. You had Brandon Beachy, Tommy Hansen, Tim Hudson, Chris Medlin, Julio Teheran, and Jair Jurgens. You had 6 guys. All those guys kind of in and out over that stretch, but just some really, good pitchers, not Cy Young winners, although Tim Hudson, was up there at times. Chris Medlin had that great season, but unfortunately had the injury. But you had 6 guys who, for a 5-6 year stretch there, kind of in and out of the rotation, but just really solid guys. And I'm kind of what I'm looking for with this Brave staff going forward. I'm going to run through the rest of these here really quickly, mainly just to give you some of these fun names that I found while going through here. 2008 was a tough year. They ranked 20th. Jorge Campillo. Does anybody remember that guy? I had not a clue who this guy was. He led that rotation with a 4.34 ERA that season. That included Mike Hampton, Tom Glavine with a 5.54 ERA, JoJo Reyes in there, and Charlie Morton in that 2008 rotation with a 6.32 ERA. Nobody's wanting that version of Charlie Morton back. In 2007, they ranked 13th. The year before that, they were 17th. So a little bit of a rough year in the late 2000s. And then in 2005, they ranked 3rd. Jorge Sosa, I had no clue who Jorge Sosa was, but he led that Braves rotation with a 2.62 ERA. I have no idea why I cannot remember Jorge Sosa. I don't have the best memory in the world, but you think I'd remember a guy that had a 2.62 ERA in front of John Smoltz, who had a 3.06 that year, Mike Hampton at 3.5, and Tim Hudson at 3.52. So that was a really good rotation in 2005, the last year of that stretch of division wins. In 2004, you had Jarrett Wright lead the way along with John Thompson. I don't remember John Thompson, Paul Bird, Russ Ortiz, and Mike Hampton. In 2003, it was Ortiz as well. Maddox, his last year in Atlanta, a 3.96 ERA. Maddox's career is just crazy. They had the special on him the other night on MLB Network. If you didn't check that out, go back and do so. And then 2010, they were first in all of baseball with a 3.42 ERA, led by Maddox at 2.62, Glavine 2.96, Millwood 3.25, and Damian Moss 3.5. Here's a crazy stat for you. If you're still hanging around here with me, let me know, because I'm about to give you a crazy stat. The Braves were number 1 in starting pitching ERA from 1991 to 2002. From 1991 to 2002, the Braves led all of baseball in starting pitching ERA. That's absurd. That is absurd. Now, you're never going to see that again. Obviously, 3 Hall of Famers doing a lot of the work. 1992 was the craziest of those years. They had a 2.95 staff ERA. During this stretch, there's some seasons where a team led baseball with an ERA over 5, starter ERA. We're only talking about starter ERA here. But in 1992, they had a staff ERA of 2.95, led by Glavine at 2.76, Smoltz at 2.85, Avery at 3.20, Charlie Lebrun at 3.39, and then they had guys like David Need, Pete Smith, and Mike Belikai, who had ERAs below 2.7 that season. Just an incredible year. But, I mean, what a stretch for that Braves starting rotation, which is really what this team has been about. And with all of that to get back to 2024 and beyond. Can the Braves repeat that with all the success they've had drafting and developing starting pitching? Can they get in another run like that with guys coming up like a Spencer Schwellenbach, like an AJ Smith-Shawver, young guys like J.R. Ritchie and Owen Murphy, all the guys they have coming up, and obviously some of the veterans that they brought in, a Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez. Can they bring back a Max Fried? I feel like there's a chance that the Braves could, go on another run like this where they finish every season in the top 10, top 5 in starter ERA. I think there's a good group for them to be able to do that. But hope you enjoyed that. Hope you're able to stick through that with me. If you remember some of those names, let me know. Again, there's some in there I do not recall at all, but I don't have the best memory in the world. My wife will tell you that. All right, next we'll get into a little bit of news, including what happened on Monday night where Jorge Soler leaves the game. Michael Harris comes in. We'll discuss that, and at Tuesday's matchup where one of those guys I just mentioned, Spencer Schwellenbach, possibly the future of this rotation, He'll be on the mound Tuesday night as the Braves look to go ahead and wrap up a series win against the Minnesota Twins. We'll discuss that next. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trade, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. So if you missed it during the game on Monday, Jorge Soler started this game. Michael Harris did not. Turns out Michael Harris finished the game and Jorge Soler did not. Don't know if there's anything to that. I have not seen anything post-game. Obviously, it's a late night with a rain delay. I don't expect too much to come out after the game. Jorge Soler did make somewhat of an awkward diving catch early in that one. It was also a big lead, so maybe they just decided to get Jorge Soler off his feet and rest that hamstring. Glad they did because Michael Harris, like I said, made a couple of really good catches in this one. Hopefully there's nothing there for Jorge Soler and he's back. And again, just a chance to rest him with that big lead. But on the good news, Michael Harris came into the game, made several great catches, as I've mentioned a couple of times now. He also swung the bat. So that should tell you, I think that hand is okay and that he'll likely be in the lineup on Tuesday. So that is great news. Like I said, though, when he comes back, put him in the 5-6 spot in the lineup and just let him relax in the middle of the order there. Take some of that pressure off from batting at the top. And let's see if we can get Michael Harris going. We talked about Matt Olson. Maybe he's starting to turn things around. Ozuna's been there all year. Whit Merrifield looking good at the top. If you can get Michael Harris going as well in the middle of this order, really lengthens things. And you get that dynamic player, in there who has the pop, has the speed. But again, just good to see him back out there. Looks like he's going to be okay and be back in there soon, if not tomorrow. Now, speaking of tomorrow, the pitching matchup, Spencer Schwellenbach versus Simeon Woods Richardson. That's for Woods Richardson, just a 23-year-old who's having, not necessarily a breakout year, but he's starting to reach some of that potential after a couple of rough seasons, very small sample size in 2022 and 2023. A 3.69 ERA this year, just a 1.18 whip. Not a lot of strikeouts, though. 99 strikeouts to 112 in 112 and a third innings pitched. Good fastball slider combination, but neither has a whiff rate over 25%. So he's relying more on weak contact. Hopefully the Braves get more of that hard contact that we saw on Monday night. So not the worst matchup in the world for a guy that doesn't get a lot of swing and miss, doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, also not going to walk you either. So he wants you to put the ball in play, and hopefully the Braves can continue what they did on Monday night against Simeon Woods Richardson. As for Spencer Schwellenbach, he's gone at least 5 innings in every start except for one this year where he went 4 2/3 innings. And that's also the only start this year that he's given up more than 4 runs. One of the great things about Spencer Schwellenbach and one of the great things about really good pitchers, they always give you a chance to win. And that's what Spencer Schwellenbach has done every time this year except for one. And hopefully he does that again on Tuesday. And he's now racking up the strikeouts as this is a kid, doesn't have a lot of starting experience, who is learning on the fly at the big league level and just seemingly getting better and better. So I cannot wait to see Spencer Schwellenbach back out there on Tuesday for a chance to give the Braves a series win, a big series win on the road against the Minnesota Twins. Again, thank you for joining me here tonight. We got Shadow Ninja joining me here at the end, Patrick McCarthy hanging in there, Cherith, Imity Griggs, Injured Thrills, Jeffrey made it to the end. Thank you so much. Little Lee, Mass Boost. I really appreciate you joining me here late tonight after the long rain delay. Leland Hurt, see you in there as well. And every dayer, thank you so much for your support. And I appreciate you all joining. Simba, the one true king. I do love me some Simba as well. Good to see him at the ballpark the other night. and love above all in here as well. Thank you all for joining me late night on Monday to celebrate this big 10-6 win for the Atlanta Braves. But that would do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks for making this your first listen of the day. Now go make your second listen to Locked On MLB podcast, where Sully gets you ready for the postseason. And make sure the Braves and the Twins will be back at it again at 7:40 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday night. Catch every pitch of the Braves hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Braves. Again, subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already so others can find us. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next time.